Welcome to the S.J. Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to the S.J. Child Show. Today, I am so excited to welcome Katheryn Bermann. And I probably said it wrong that time just to say it wrong. Bermann.
Yes, Bermann.
Oh my God. See, I think it's everybody, right? You get a little bit of under pressure and then you're like, oh, I'm freaking out right in this moment. But
oh, that's okay.
Nobody can see that. So that's okay too. It's so nice to meet you. It's interesting. Like I just said that, we got together as soon as we did. So I'm just really honored and I'm excited to hear about you and learn more about you and learn how I can support you and on your journey. So give us a little introduction about yourself and what brought you here today.
Sure. This is actually my first time being a guest on any podcast ever. So I'm very excited and I get to talk about the work I do, which I love. I currently am a behavior therapist for special needs children, and I've been doing that for a few years. I've been working with individuals with developmental and intellectual or learning disabilities for longer than that. But now I kind of specialize in autism spectrum disorders and related conditions. And I love this field. I would not give it up for all the money in the world. I love what I do.
Yeah. That's so special because when you I love what I do too. And when you do, then everything moves into place for you, just like this today, just moves into place and in the right place where you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And it's so wonderful to hear that you're putting into the community something that is so needed, and to have someone that has a passion for it is so much appreciated.
Oh, I appreciate it. I really do enjoy learning and being a resource for families. I mean, doing the work that I do, that's how I think of my role. I don't think of myself as like the therapist who's separate. We're all a team. And when I do therapy with the kiddo, it's not just working with the kiddo, it's talking to the families, talking to the caregivers, seeing how I can best support them. What do they want me to focus on? And that's how I've been doing my job for about the last few months or so. I've really gotten down to what kind of a practitioner I want to be moving forward.
Where did you grow up? Do you have an accent or something?
Yes. I haven't quite lost that, even though I've been living out of my home state for several years now. I am originally from Fox Valley, Wisconsin.
Okay, there you go. Oh, and where are you at now?
Right now, I work in Ohio, outside of Cleveland.
Wonderful. They have a lot of great resources in Ohio, don't they? I hear that.
They do.
And like the milestones.
Yeah.
I was just a part of the Milestones conference and one of their presentations with the Global Autism Project. And it was so great to be able to, just be a part of it. I wish I could have been there in person, but it was virtual. So, but we love the virtual stuff too.
Oh, me too. The year I moved out here, the previous year, Milestones had Temple Grandin as their keynote speaker at their conference. So I'm so sad that I missed it.
Yes. And, I've had her on the show.
Really?
She is fantastic. Yes. It's, yeah, I know I should know the episode number right off the top of my head, but you got to go back. And for those of you listening, yes, go back and listen to Temple and I's conversation because we could have talked for hours. She is so sweet and she just loves and is so passionate about what she does as well. And it's so impressive to be able to follow in these big steps of these pioneers of autism work and really give back to the community. Our journey started about 13 years ago, which then led us to all of our family members finding out we were autistic, and now being able to go forward with this great new perspective and say, hey, we have to change the way we think about these things. We need to change our ideas and let go of the limits that we put on the idea of what autism is, or, what an autistic person acts or looks like. All of these ideas that are really, I think in the United States, we're doing a great job, and probably, Europe, but there's still a lot of places around the world that are just becoming aware. And so we have to just be so respectful on so many different fronts, in so many areas, but to really hone in on what are we doing for the future? What are we doing with our generations of children that are all going to be coming forward when we're all gone? What does that look like? And you as a therapist, you must see, especially since I'm sure you just saw the numbers that the CDC just released like 2 days ago.
Just went up.
1 and 11 with autism developmental delays or intellectual. And so that just, wow. That's a really, really big change. How do we start to change the way we're viewing this in the world?
Oh my gosh.
Katheryn, you're in charge of this.
That's a big question. And I've only been in the field for a few years. I'm still a bit on the younger side myself, so I certainly don't have all the answers. You might want to see if you could get Dr. Greg Hanley on here.
Fantastic, right? Yeah. And I love that you're starting where you're at, though, and that's with the families.
Yeah, I think the ideas that I have, because of course I'm very active in the advocacy. I've volunteered with Milestones a few times, and it's always been incredibly rewarding to work both with the staff and with the other volunteers there. I think one of the first things we have to do, not just as practitioners, but for any viewer who is listening, to start viewing differences. And I'm not just speaking neurological differences. I'm speaking of any differences that might be visible or not, any differences in how people conduct themselves, as not something that is inherently negative. But I think, I don't remember who said it, but someone said, nothing is to be feared, it's only to be understood. And that very much resonates with me. That's how I try to approach any session that I do with a client, that if I could just understand, it's amazing what starts to click and what you start to realize about, oh, that's what was going on. Oh, that's why they did what they did.
Yeah. It's so interesting when we can kind of just be humble and really listen, and really, as probably in your field, watch and really become aware of what the child's needs really are. Are they behaving in a way because their communication is failing to be processed in the way that we're expecting as adults in a society? Are we, not being able to understand, just like we're here always, like our kind of given in inner being is here, and we have always asked for help ever since we were babies. That's what we've done, is ask for help. I need this. But when we have children who can't do that, we need to listen on with more than our ears, and we need to really watch and see what their needs are. And that can be a hard thing to teach someone who hasn't had that experience before.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find that with your parents?
I work currently and have worked in the past with some clients who are non-speaking, meaning they don't use spoken words either at all or as their preferred way of communicating. And yes, what you're saying really resonates with me. We have, if an individual is choosing not to use verbal spoken language, then it's up to us, especially as therapists, to find a way that they can communicate what they need. Whether this is through, I think some viewers might recognize the term PECS, the picture exchange system, whether that's through an iPad equipped with a text-to-speech application, whatever works best for each individual kiddo, so that they have a way to communicate if it's not through spoken language.
I love that. And, I've even seen in just recent posts somewhere, there were like buttons that you put up on the wall that like light different colors.
Yes, I've seen those too.
That's fantastic. We need to give all of the tools we can to these children and individuals and parents and families, everybody, right? Caregivers, schools. We need to be providing all of the right tools. And that is going to be a hard, a big thing to do. But I think as we gain more understanding about how to accommodate more in our communities, we can hope that they'll start integrating those types of ideas maybe into their budgeting and try to get these, kinds of important materials available to children in schools. What do you think about the schools in your area in Ohio? How have you heard, what's the buzz in your neck of the woods?
Well, I definitely feel like schools in general are terribly underfunded. They need a budget that's about 3-4 times what they currently receive for all children. Teachers, if I had any say in the matter, teachers would receive triple their salary tomorrow.
Yeah.
Teachers do amazing work. Schools in general do amazing work. I did have the opportunity myself to work in a school setting for kiddos with developmental disabilities. And oh my gosh, I can tell you right now, I won't go into too much detail just for privacy's sake, but the families and the coworkers that I had, we truly felt like one big team. We were all there for the children. At least in my experience, it's been working in this field, everyone's priority is the child. Everyone just wants what's best for the child. I haven't seen really any example that's run counter to that in the school setting.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. We can all hope that our own communities step up to the plate and can offer great accommodations. In our personal experience, we've had to homeschool for the entirety of our school career. But
the entire time?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Up until this point, I have a 13-year-old who has a photographic memory, has an auditory memory. And so with him, it's, but he's also semi-verbal, and he profoundly gifted, yet it's like twice profoundly gifted, twice exceptional DJ somewhere, and so the skills that we have to focus on are more things like clothing and laundry and shopping and life
Mhm.
skills in general and socialization. In first grade, he was doing algebra. And
Oh,
that's
wow.
when we were asked to leave the public school because they could not accommodate. And as ashamed as I am to say this, coming from a paralegal background, I was just devastated at the thought that they would not support me and they weren't going to try to create a program for him and whoever else came after him. But that didn't happen. And we just didn't have success. We tried another charter school for autistic children, but that also didn't work out, and they didn't hold the same standards that they had told me they were going to. So it all came to be a very disappointing system for me to work with here. But I did find an online school that allowed us to do 2 grades a year. And through
Wow.
that, I was able to get him the basics in all of this. He was speaking like 3 languages at 5 and 6. And he didn't start speaking until about 4. And so it was like this, more information than a human can possibly have, and just constantly running. I kind of liken him to a computer with all of the tabs open. He has
Mhm.
all of the information that could possibly be imaginable. We couldn't, a 99% working memory. We couldn't possibly even fathom what that might be like if we don't have that ourselves. But the problem with that is when your computer has all of its tabs open, it generally doesn't function. And so that is kind of where that, analogy comes into play, is that we really have it's been a great learning experience for me to be on this journey, and through that to then see my husband and think, oh my gosh, now I can understand you a little bit better. And then our daughter, and then myself. And um it was like an honor to be able to say, like, I belong in this family, and I can see in my childhood some things that were highly overlooked, and especially in females. What do you see in your practice today? And maybe because you are seem to be a little bit neuroaffirming in your practice, what do you see as the female, numbers are on the rise as well?
I am so glad you recognize that, because that is something that I'm trying very hard to integrate into my practice, the neuroaffirming perspective. So
Yeah.
thank you. That
Yeah.
tells me I'm on the right path
Absolutely.
as I grow in my role. I think, well, some of your viewers may know that autism especially has been underdiagnosed in girls and in women. Um, they are diagnosed much less frequently than are boys and males. There's a couple different reasons for that in the literature, but in my experience, I have significantly fewer female children that I work with than male children. And I think I personally really, really enjoy working with female kiddos. Um, and it makes me sad to think that there are probably kiddos out there who are female who would really benefit from some services that they could receive if they received a diagnosis.
Exactly.
I wish it weren't like that, but unfortunately, a lot of times a diagnosis is a barrier to acquiring services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is so true. And for it's kind of this learning level where you might have the idea that a label is something that gives you demeaning or, a negative experience. But for us as a family, personally, the freedom and the acceptance and the help and support that we were able to get because of this identity being able to really, excuse me, not be the drama queen, not be the, the quiet. My daughter's my opposite. She's very, very quiet and an introvert. And people, oh, are you depressed? Are you this? No.
Oh, goodness.
She is just viewing the world. She's taking it all in. She is so much smarter than so many,
yes.
even adults. She is emotionally intelligent. I remember when she was just really little, and it's so great when you can look back and say, okay, these were the autistic identities that I wasn't being able to see at the time, but now I can identify them. The obsessive shoe the love for shoes, everyone's shoes, not only hers, but every single shoe.
Yes.
Hyperlexic, as well as myself, spoke very, very soon and could have these amazing discussions, especially with adults, right? And why would adults question that? Why you're enjoying that discussion with this little person and their ability to use their brain as highly functionable as they are. And we don't see that as this beautiful autistic ability. It just goes completely overlooked. And I mean, I'm not to say that any, conversation with a child isn't beautiful as it is, because it's always so innocent and sweet. But in the cases where I can look back and see where she would have a meltdown and it looked just like her brother's meltdowns, but he was autistic and she was not. So it wasn't the same, right? And you don't know until you do. And when you do better. So once we realized and we were like, oh my gosh, we cannot be putting these expectations on her. We can't be, we need to allow this space for her to cool down and gather herself and gain control back. Because when she's in this out of control meltdown mode, just like her brother, there's no interacting or stopping it. It is just going to continue. So it's powerful to get these diagnoses and these understandings of a person and being able to support them.
It really is, yes. And I'm glad you spoke so much about how there were differences between the cause of some of the behavior that you were seeing, the meltdown, as it were. You probably know what I'm about to say, but there's a phrase in the literature that says if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. So it is very, very different. People in general, neurodiverse or neurotypical, whatever that actually means, are different. To me, autism is just a word in the DSM.
Yes.
How would you choose to describe your experience? What does having that diagnosis of autism mean to you? What any kiddos who can or who choose to speak to me verbally, I really try to ask them, what do you want to learn today? What should we work on today? It's really in a therapeutic context. I try to have my curriculum guided by the kiddo and the parents, just because everything is so different. It varies so much, even between families with kiddos that are the same age. Could be vastly different.
100%. And it's really important too that you, and it sounds just like what you're doing, is really hone in on, like you said, what are their interests? What can I engage them with? Because if we're constantly looking to engage a child in a way that they're not open to being engaged, you're going to constantly be hitting a brick wall, and it's going to be called all of these things except for what it really is, that you are not looking and listening and being present in the moment and not putting this child's needs first and understanding if you engage them in their strengths and interests, you can build up their challenges with those things.
Oh, yes. And what you're describing is the technical term for it in behavior analysis is pairing, where say if you have a new staff member, a new person who's working with the kiddo in a therapy context, the first few times you work together, make sure that when you're there, so is also something that the kiddo really, really, really loves. Or you're doing something that they really enjoy. One kiddo that I worked with absolutely loved playing hide and seek. That's all we did our first few sessions together, just to get me as a person established that, hey, we can hang out, we can have fun. I'm not just going to have you sit at a table and do arithmetic exercises for 3 hours. No, this is going to be fun.
And it's so important for parents to know that if they are in a setting with a therapist that they don't feel is right for them, it's so okay for them to say, I'd like to try someone new. This might not be working out for me. Because just like you're saying, we, at the beginning of our time had a couple of people, and one in particular just, our son was leaps and bounds beyond what we were working on, like what a dog said. And I'm like, he speaks Italian, he do some rhythm. Yeah. Like you have to do like these fractions with him. Go talk about geography. Like he wants to do the periodic table of elements. He doesn't like animals. He doesn't care what a dog says. It doesn't mean anything to him. And it was months of the same thing, and the upset, running around, and I was trying to remember what the name of it's called, right? When he was exiting everything and he just would never stay. And it was so hard to help. And it was one of our very first therapists. So definitely didn't have all of the knowledge I do today, but that is a learning lesson and a step. And now even to be able to help others to say that didn't look right and it didn't feel right. And when we left that setting and were able to get someone else in there, it was night and day. The relationship that he started to cultivate with the new therapist that we then had for years, followed her to another company, stayed with her forever. So still to this day, even though he doesn't receive therapy anymore, I still stay in touch with her and make sure that she sees the progress he's making and is able to know that she was a part of that.
That is so wonderful. I'm so glad you found someone with whom you have such a wonderful and trusting relationship, and that they did so much good.
Thank you. And it really gave me a good understanding, that parents really need support. It's one thing to have a therapist come in, or you take your child to a clinic and them get the support. But if that doesn't transfer to the parents in an equitable way that they can then take into their home and practice with their child, it's almost for nothing. And not that it's, right, of course, not for nothing, but it can be so much more empowering for the whole family setting to be able to integrate those things with the parents, and that was something that I think I had to put together myself. Like I really had to be in their faces. Okay, show me what they're doing. Show me what's happening. But now I think that they're doing better. I think there's so many more parent coaches out there today.
There are, yes, at least from what I have seen and what my experience has been. And parent coaching is something that I personally want to get into as well. It's funny you should touch on being able to implement treatment at home and quickly and easily. There's a term for that too in my field. It's called social validity. And it basically means that you could have the most well thought out step-by-step intervention on the planet. But if it takes like an hour to complete fully every day, where are you going to use it?
Yeah.
Where are you going to use it? So yeah, that's a huge tenet of the field that I'm in, is whatever intervention you design, whatever therapeutic technique you choose to use, it has to be able to be used everywhere and easily.
I love that. Oh, that is such great advice and just information, because I love when you hear something new in another way. You're like, oh my gosh, yes, that's great. It's so true. Parents, need to be able to, I think one of the very earliest things that we learned how to kind of communicate with our son, because he was still non-speaking at the time, was ready, set, go. And we would, would say ready and put our feet on the ground, boom, 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 and make a little sound. And then we'd say set, and we'd clap our hands. And then we'd say go, and we'd raise our arms up and yell go. And so it was so exciting. It was stomping your feet and clapping your hands and raising your arms. And he loved it. He would want to do ready, set, go all of the time. He wanted to take pictures of it and do all of, it was like the most exciting thing for him. And it helped us so much. And it was just this wonderful early intervention therapist, like one of the very, very first ones who came in. And she, really helped us understand how to enter his world at the time. And he and I were communicating through writing. He was reading at 1 and writing at 2. And from 2 to 4, we were doing written communication back and forth to one another, and not like complex, of course, but still, do you need chips? Yes. Do you want water or whatever? It was wanted needs, a little bit opposite on those, but I tried to really teach him, I had like, the pronoun chart so that he knew I was mom and dad was dad and sister was Sydney and sister was Anna, and all of these things, so that he could really practice, because he knew he was reading. And so if I could get him to help put those placements in, it was really great. There was a lot of work at home.
Oh my gosh, some of the things that parents have shared with me about what they've tried at home before I come in as a therapist. Oh my gosh, how do you do it? How do you do so much research on your own like that? No matter how good I feel the relationship is that I might have with a kiddo, I will never ever compete with mom and dad. Ever.
Yeah. And
no, they are the experts.
Hopefully they are doing their best. And I'm most definitely, they, surely are. And just really finding all the tools. And now, I mean, a decade ago, when we were just barely going dairy gluten free, there was nothing out there. And it was so difficult. Today, we're at any store, we can get any bread or any, milk in any place, and we have the options available to us. And it's so much nicer now than it was. Oh my gosh. Not to mention, all of the therapies and all of the different, things that are coming out, play therapy, and some just really exciting things. What do you hope in future for your own practice, some things that you might be able to achieve?
Well, speaking very broadly, I hope that in the future we have many, many more people who want to do this kind of work and work with the families. The need far, far overwhelms the resources that we have. So that would be a goal that I have just for the field in general. For goals that might be achieved within the next week, the next month, the next year, I hope that the families that would benefit from services like this, or even benefit just from the knowledge, the nuts and bolts of what we do and what our therapy system is based on, I hope they find us. And I would love to get involved in speaking more publicly about our field and what we do. Check, I'm on the podcast. And I hope there are some programs that I'm going to be creating when the show concludes for some of the kiddos that I currently work with. So I'm crossing my fingers that those help. That not only they're easily implemented and that they make sense to the parents and the caregivers, but that they make sense to the kiddos and that the kiddos improve with the skills that we are working on.
Katheryn, it's been so nice to get to know you today. And I am so grateful for the work you're doing. And I'm sure so are all of the families and children and adult, individuals that you're with as well. And just thank you so much.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. I really love talking about this field. I love hearing other people's stories. And I am so glad that the universe must have arranged this.
Exactly.
Because this has been incredibly enjoyable for me. And I hope that the viewers listening are taking something meaningful away.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I really hope we can stay in touch. And before we do go, tell us where we can find you to go to support you on social media or website.
Oh, wow. I'm just starting to build my presence on social media as a practitioner in this field. And right now I work for a very small independent agency. But the work that I do, it's called applied behavior analysis. It's usually conducted in a clinic format or in a home. So within whatever location the family is living in. And if anyone wants to know more about applied behavior analysis, you can look up any one of Skinner's numerous works, like verbal behavior. The text that we use in our field is called the Cooper book. It's a thick white book about like this. This is how thick it is. What is that, like 2-3 inches? So yes, and my name is Katheryn Bermann. I am on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn. I would love to build more connections on LinkedIn, so feel free to find me there. You could probably recognize my headshot and you could see the kind of work that I've been doing and where I plan to go.
I love that. Thank you so much again. And it's just been a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you. And we will definitely be in touch.
Wonderful. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.